Welcome. Well, I record these videos each week, generally on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. You're welcome to join through Mindful Prat or find it on Twitch at Rooks is Fun. It always takes me a little bit of time to get around to the editing and slowly creeping further ahead or further behind each week as I have a backlog to get to. And while this exercise this week was recorded probably about a month ago, it's coming around the holiday time, and I hope to get a couple out so that you can continue to go along with these while we take a little break from the practice in the live format. So I hope you enjoy what we end up drawing here as these floating boundaries around the page, and check in next week, Wednesday morning, for a new episode of Mindful Drawing. Whatever you do for the holidays and however you celebrate, I hope you get some time to relax and open up some space for yourself to be creative and enjoy space of mindful expression. Now, on to the exercise. Draw well. This week's practice has put me in a state of fairly intense relaxation. Maybe it's just the day, a little dreary outside, some gray weather, and a little bit of time for the self to practice a little bit of creativity and some self-expression. If you're new here, welcome. This is Mindful Drawing. I'm Rooks is Fun, and I'll be your host and your guide as we explore mindfulness through a practice of drawing, through an expression of creativity by opening up the space of the mind, connecting through the body, through the hands, through the arm, to the breath, and to our own internal senses and intentions, and letting them guide the formation of something out here on the page. If you're looking for a space to just give yourself 20 to 30 minutes of time to do something creative, to practice a new skill, these exercises are aimed at anyone from any skill level. The techniques are fairly simple. We do a little warm-up to get everyone on board with how we'll start our drawing, and then we just practice through repetition, through connection to our breath and connection to our space, through detachment and letting go of anything that may be forcing our hand or guiding our eye, and opening up to see what we can find there on the paper, hopefully in search of a little relaxation, maybe some inspiration, and letting each of us explore in our own space the creativity that we can have through this act of mindful drawing. All you need is a pen or pencil, some paper, a drawing pad or a sketchbook, and a little bit of time here to give yourself that space of mindful practice. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish yourself in space, and let's draw together. I think today's exercise will kind of play in a field of a little bit of kind of swimming or floating curve bundles, something of just filling out a bit of a smooth flowing space on the page. And my thoughts to start are to get warmed up, just feeling out a few curves, trying out directions that feel good to you. So starting anywhere, letting the pen move, maybe do a little bit of an undulation, a little sine wave or something. Testing first, maybe left to right in a horizontal fashion. Starting to let your eye pick up this kind of braiding, winding pattern. But also just to let the pen move a little free from over guidance and see how it goes. And then we might work right to left, maybe in a diagonal. The more in the warm-up that we start to get some crossing and overlapping, the more we can begin to separate too much intention or guidance. This one getting a little messy is fine. Maybe a little down to up motion. Just letting the hand move in a few different directions and get a sense of where our arm is in space, how we might play through a few of these meandering, oscillating curves. And they can be large, swooping arcs, perhaps very gradual, just gentle waves passing by. all of those open to explore together or separately in the larger format of the drawing. After the next few, hopefully you have just a sense of that motion and movement. That'll be the bulk of where we go with the exercise, just tracking it along those curves, but maybe a little more organized on the page. So if you think back to that as you establish some fresh territory, a new page or piece of paper, and feel in the hand which direction may have felt more comfortable or natural to just more direct to your position, go ahead. Set yourself up for that. I think I'll work a bit diagonally. It feels good in my place today. Take a couple of deep breaths just to stabilize and center, letting it drift out kind of heavy, getting into a place of a little bit of floating on the breath so we can have some of these meandering curves begin to swim on the space of the page. Taking a breath in to establish position with the pen or pencil, and letting the breath out with the motion there of the curves. The distance and shape it begins to take tied to our starting. And a reflection of that natural rhythm coming from our breath. And after 3 or 4 or so undulations in one place, making this swim through the space, I'm going to reposition, but you can continue expanding or just keep going in one location depending on the size of your paper. Taking a breath into position, maybe even closing the eyes for a moment to detach a little from the page. Finding that location and letting it flow out. A new action pattern, a new ripple emerging from the blank on the paper. Each breath playing through a game of resonance or interference. A practice in guidance or letting go, just flowing through with that motion of the hand as it makes a mark there. Again, every few strands in the bundle, finding a new location, taking a breath into position, using that opportunity to check in with where our breath is. It's easy to get caught up in the movement and the motion. Making sure we have that mindfulness and attention to our space of our body, to the influence on our action, and having some room for that rhythm of the breath to stabilize, to bring us some oxygen, to begin a cycle of relaxation through feeding our mind and our muscles in a rhythm that's at first guided by our action, later drifts into resonance. Operating with our motion. And depending on the size of your page or the density and size of your little swimming actions here, you can start to change size, feed some things in between a little smaller. They can even overlap go inside for a while, shifting that attention from the breath that is stabilized, the breath to bring relaxation, into attention to really the movement of the hand, the engagement on the paper, that point of contact, the speed of motion along one of the oscillations as it begins slow and then speed and flick out at the end, or keep a smooth consistency in bringing our attention and awareness to that action. We change it and guide it. We can play a little in that space to find the motion that sits with us now. Something smooth for me, with just a little quick extension at the end to feather it out, keep some variety and imprecision. A few rounds as that attention to the motion and speed can intensify, can look closer in at the pressure on the tips of the fingers. Each movement up or down, left or right, bringing a little bit of shift on those sensors, on the nerves. And that pressure transfers along the finger, the thumb, up into the hand, into the stability, looseness of the wrist. Depending on how you're drawing, that may create a firmness, a hold in the wrist joint to make the pen, pencil, an extension of the arm. You can feel that firmness travel up through the forearm, into the subtle movements of the elbow as the arm tracks back and forth, extending, contracting. You may feel, depending on how you're sitting, a bit of tension up into the shoulder. The more outward we extend, the more eccentricity to the motion, the more those little muscles stabilize, the more we can bring our attention to that chain of action through the arm, starting as we did through the breath, moving through our senses, our nerves, connecting that to the control or motion of the muscle, all present in our space of action here, the thing in the moment. And if, like my page, you're filling up the small swimming bundles are becoming connected or grouped waves, begin to use that internal space we're establishing to move around through the territory, to look for new opportunities. You could perhaps begin to connect moments across new undulations, letting curves overlap for a little while and drift between different groupings, extend out and cross through the space as a way of finding some bundling or weaving integration, larger patterns, just flowing that movement space together. And they may overlap perfectly, or like a school of fish, just operate in the generally same direction, generally the same motion. Knitting together of that territory from the individual action to the overall inhabitation of the time and space here, in our practice of connecting through drawing, through the body and the medium, and through our breath together in shared mindfulness and awareness. And with a pretty full, dense page flowing here, you can find other ways of moving in. Feel free to continue accentuating, extending, and connecting the curves. In mine, my eyes begin to notice the intersection, some patterns tightly bundled versus others emerging, starting points, crossing points. And I just start to look through, identify, maybe intensify moments along the chains, giving those eyes a chance to do their part as they read the complexity visually, as they begin to try and sort out, parse, and connect a visual pattern in space. And giving our mind some time in distinct and emergent moments of the drawing to find pattern. To take a little walk, maybe a little swim through this established territory. Now a space both generated and found. And a chance for the hand and the eye to communicate together in finding something repetitive, but perhaps automatic, moving point to point, curve to curve, emphasizing connection or overlap, always local, always right in the space of that moment. And if you're exploring some knots or bundling dots at the intersections like I am, you may be able to bring your attention in to each of those moments, cycle back around to the breath, and use the location as a way to establish the inflow to the body. Use the marking to connect with the outflow. of ink or graphite and of breath and relaxation. Any uncertainty, tightness, thoughts or stress flowing out with the motion of the hand, flowing out with the rise and fall of the chest and the breath. Floating through that territory of undulating waves, of patterns swimming across the space, taking us along a journey, giving us space to bring that attention to our action and detach it from desire or figuration in the drawing. Detach it from how it might look. And just open up to that repetition, the space of the many actions, each unique in their place and time, together becoming larger, a tapestry, collection, an unforeseen and unpredicted scene. As we should have quite a lot of density to that scene, quite a lot of openness now to the territory, that space of moving through, an openness to our mind through the cycles of our breath and attention to action. That mindful presence focused in, just here, just now, and forming connection one instance at a time. We can take a few moments, a few minutes of quiet to continue on this path, or transition to other things that emerge through the complexity, and just spend the next 5 minutes drawing, exploring those connections, emphasizing or extending, whatever feels right. In the last minute or so that we have, you can use the drawing to become a little back into your space, to start reversing our way through some of that focus so that we reabsorb into our environment. With each new curve, dot, or action, bring your attention to one of the senses. Flex the eyes, open or closed, around a few moments of drawing. Let it absorb the full space, to let in everything, and zero back into where the pen or pencil might be. And if it helps to put down the drawing implement, that's fine. Just letting those eyes come back to seeing narrow and wide together. And then on the next few breaths, as you breathe in through the nose, if you can, notice any smells in the space around you, subtle or strong. And then let some of that breath drift in through the mouth, drift over the tongue. Notice any tastes in the air, just the sensation of the movement of air over the tongue, into the mouth, into the nose. And let the ears open up. Hear the small sounds, the creaks or the traffic, the wind or the rain outside. The sound of the pencil moving on the paper, being put down next to you. And finally, with a couple of deep breaths, feel through the hairs on your skin, the movements, the little flow or swim of any air currents. Perhaps with all the drawing, there's a little layer of sweat in the hands that begins to evaporate. Little movements of the air against your face. And wherever your feet or legs might be, giving them some presence to stabilize on the floor. Extending everything out in any way you can. And then letting a nice sigh or deep breath just relax any tension that was built up there from some time of action and practice. And come back into your space and prepare for the rest of your day. Well, I hope that if, like me, you found a strong sense of relaxation in that exercise, you can carry that with you into what you might do during the day, approach situations of stress or intensity with calm and stability, or if it's in the evening, just ride that nice wave into sleep, let the dreams swim and flow, and give yourself that space of openness and creativity. I thank you for joining along. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Please share with your friends and leave me a comment below and let me know what you thought about it. Books is fun, and I'll be your guide each week here with new sessions of mindful drawing, practices of creativity and expression to give us a little bit of self-time. Wherever the rest of the day takes you, draw well. Thank you.